Good morning. So today I am doing my presentation on learning. I'm Melissa Long and I'm doing my presentation on learning disabilities. So all about learning disabilities. One of the main things to know about learning disabilities is that there is no medical test to determine if an individual has a learning disability. The number one step for doctors in finding out if an individual has learning disabilities is to give them a diagnostic test, which rules out vision, hearing, and any type of developmental issues. The most two common types of learning disabilities that I will be touching on in my presentation is dyslexia and dyscalculia, and another type of learning disability that I'll be touching on that is kind of it's common but people don't talk about it is dysgraphia. So different types of learning disabilities. So first we're going to touch on, hopefully you can see. First we're going to touch on dyslexia. And with dyslexia, that is the disorder that it messes with an individual's inability to work with phonics. So as far as reading words and comprehending spelling, things like that. They have an issue with words that sound similar but mean different things. So example could be there, and there, or where, and where. Also, they have an issue breaking down words according to sound. So that's one of the main things with dyslexia. And another thing with dyslexia is individuals have they struggle with fluency, spelling, and comprehension. So they have an issue with saying certain type of words or saying a whole complete sentence or phrase or thought. They struggle with spelling, which means they could mix up letters. For example, like D and B, or P's and different other letters. They mess up R's and P's, I know are common. And as far as comprehension, they may struggle to comprehend a certain phrase as simple as, do you understand the material that you're reading? That may be difficult with someone with dyslexia. So dyscalculia means a disorder, and it disrupts any type of math related issues. So that could mean simply when it comes to problem solving, they have issues with understanding measurements and estimations. So for example, if someone were to ask me, how much sugar did you use in your cake mix, to make your cake? I could say, I probably estimate about half a cup of sugar. Someone with dyscalculia may not understand the difference between estimations, and they could give the total wrong number, and they don't understand how to estimate. Also, people with dyscalculia have an issue with when it comes to ranges of numbers, not really understanding the difference between, 1 cup or half a cup, or stuff like that. And they also have an issue performing basic math skills, which could mean anything with multiplication and division, or adding and subtracting. And before you can get to higher level equations where you're adding PEMDAS involved, or you're having to do the Pythagorean theorem, you have to get the basic understanding of math. So that's why this is a big deal. And the next one, which I feel like people should talk more about, is dysgraphia. And basically, this is a disorder that people have a trouble understanding basic principles of writing. And it's not just about writing, it's about what comes with the writing as far as posture. Some people with dysgraphia have a horrible posture when writing, and they tense up, which makes it very difficult for them to write, and it makes it painful to write. They also have difficulty holding the writing utensil. People with dysgraphia also have a hard time with sentence construction. So forming a good sentence that doesn't have too many grammatical errors or misspellings. They also can have redundant behavior in their writing or obvious errors. So they could repeat the same thing over and over or write another sentence in a different way that they just said the first sentence. So those are the main things when it comes to dysgraphia. So how does this learning disability occur? So this learning disability occurs mainly from a disruption in the development of the brain. This could happen before birth, during birth, or it could happen early in the child's, after birth, but early in the child's life. So some could include an inherited condition, which means that a condition was passed down from the mother or the father. So for example, there are individuals that have Down syndrome or autism, and they're on a spectrum, which means there are some that are not too independent and they need total assistance, and then there are some who are mildly independent and don't need a lot of assistance. So for example, if an individual with Down syndrome decided to get married and have children, and they also have a learning disability, that learning disability can be passed down to a child. Any complications during birth, so that could be a lack of oxygen for mommy or baby, that could also that could also cause a learning disability. Also, when a mother is drinking during pregnancy, which could cause fetal alcohol syndrome. Any devastating illness that happens to the baby or to the mother during pregnancy. So if there are cases where children have gotten pneumonia and parents weren't taking the steps, and those type of things can lead to brain issues, which causes a learning disability. And another cause of a learning disability could be neglect or lack of stimulation for a child. So that means this happens in the belly and once the baby is born. So not speaking to your child while they're in the womb, or not stimulating them after they get out. So talking to them, holding them, singing to them, those type of things. Also, if you lack that, it could cause a learning disability as well. So are there any preventative measures? So as far as preventative measures, there aren't any preventative measures you can really do. The only thing that could really help a child not get a learning disability is to live a healthy lifestyle. Especially because some learning disabilities are due to pre-birth or genetics, so you don't really have any control over it. As far as reducing, in order to reduce your chances of your child or an individual having a learning disability, that would mean living a healthy lifestyle during pregnancy, refusing any alcohol or drugs during pregnancy, eating healthy, getting moderate exercise, stimulating the baby in the womb. Those are pretty much lifestyle preventative measures that you can do to maybe ensure that your baby doesn't have a learning disability. So the main signs and symptoms that you want to look for is anything that your child doesn't outgrow. Because just because a child may be struggling to read or write doesn't necessarily mean they have a learning disability. These are things that the child will never outgrow. And they'll also have problems reading and writing, trouble with math, poor memory, struggle to pay attention. They'll be clumsy, poor organization skills, they'll struggle at telling time, and they'll have a hard time following any type of direction. When it comes to diagnoses, the most common test that is given is the intelligence test, which measures an individual's IQ. And also the next test that would be used is an achievement test. Those are used to determine, they evaluate reading, writing, and math. and it's a visual motor integration test. So the most common things that they're looking for during these tests is visual signals and motor coordination. So basically, can an individual do what they're seeing as far as when it comes to writing, when it comes to reading, when it comes to math? Like, can they do what they're seeing? So prognosis. So it is important long term for us to get a child with a learning disability to an individual state as possible, to adulthood. And basically what that means is helping them find a stable job, helping them get a consistent income, helping them look for affordable housing, helping them pay bills and do everyday skills. Long term, it's important to have an understanding if an individual has dysgraphia, dyslexia, or dyscalculia, they are going to have they're going to struggle more doing everyday things in adulthood life, which could mean paying bills or doing the exact calculations at the grocery store to pay for their belongings, or it could mean having trouble reading important documents, or it could mean having trouble when it comes to signing their name or writing things out for doctors or anything like that. So it's important to get them to an individual level where they can do those types of things on their own. And the goal is to eventually help individuals live day-to-day lives. So adaptation exercise prescription. So one modification that I thought was good was to reduce the class size when it comes to individuals with learning disabilities, for the simple reason normal classes are 25 to 30 students. You don't have enough time to individualize any student with a learning disability. And so I feel like reducing the class size can help. If you have a class size with 10 to 15 students, you'll have more time to work with everyone, whether they have a learning disability or not. Providing structured practice, which that's practicing certain skills the instructor could ask the child to do. So, for example, it's basically evaluating what the child does and making sure they understand what they've done. So if you pick the sport, playing soccer, if you work with the individual with a disability, you work with them on the skills of that sport, and then at the end, you would tell them what they did well and what they need to improve on. So you could tell them, okay, you kicked the ball well, you play with your classmates, or you show good sportsmanship by playing with your classmates well. Something you need to work on is not picking up the ball with your hands. And basically what you do is you repeat that to the student, and the student should be able to repeat it back to you. So you can ask them, what did I say you did well? The student should be able to tell you what you said they did well. Or what did I ask you to work on? And then the student should also be able to tell you, you told me to work on not picking up the ball with my hands. So that's structured practice. And it's also important for you to adapt the equipment. So that means making goals larger, targets larger, basketball hoops larger, because it makes for a better, you can score better, and it makes for better confidence and sportsmanship. You have better control over your target. So making equipment, adapting equipment would be another one. So some other adaptations and modifications lastly would be, it's important to teach an individual a skill rather than focus specifically on the sport. So an individual with learning disabilities, they have a trouble with motor impairment, and they may understand the sport better than they understand the skill. So you want to reverse it and get them to a point where they understand the skill more than they understand the sport, because understanding the skill will eventually get them to be able to enjoy the sport more. So for example, I use the forearm pass in volleyball. So getting them, or an underhand serve. So getting them to understand that, your hands need to be balled in here, flat, so they can understand that the ball needs to hit the wrist and the forearm part of you, that makes for safety, that makes for better safety as well, so no one's getting hurt, and it helps them understand just how they're supposed to be doing it. That way, when they're doing it correctly, there won't be any missed calls called out, there won't be any room for error, so they may not hit it out of bounds, or they may not hit it off the court, or they may not hit their next classmate. They could simply just be doing it correctly, which will help them enjoy the game more. So one organization that I have found about supporting individuals with learning disabilities was MNCAP, and their vision is a world where people with a learning disability are valued and equal. And listen, they're listened to and included. Their mission is to transform society's attitudes to learning disabilities and improve the quality of life of people with learning disabilities and their families. So basically, MNCAP wants society to be more accepting and understanding of individuals with learning disabilities, because not only do learning disabilities affect the individual, they affect the family, teachers, professors, people that work with them. And it's better for society to understand a person with a learning disability, because we shouldn't shelter people with learning disabilities. They still have to go buy groceries. They still go to the movies. They still go to the gym and work out. They still want to purchase cars. So if society understands individuals with learning disabilities, it would be better and it would be more accepting, and we could work all together to have it be more accepting and having it be more equal and not so standoffish. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.